Get ready, because this week I'm going to talk about some players that you probably really don't want to trade for. But hey, we're talking buy low. I mean, I wouldn't be doing you any service if I said, hey, go get that Judge guy. These are players that are struggling, hence the buy low part. Like, you're just going to have a little faith that these guys will turn things around for the rest of the season, and I'll explain why I think they will. For a while now, I've been wondering when or even if I would talk about Corbin Carroll, all-star outfielder for the Diamondbacks, or at least all-star last year, superstar in fantasy. This year, I mean, can we just slap the bust label on him? I think we can. A lot of people are frustrated and ready to sell low, not so much buy, and some people are even just ready to outright drop him. I don't think that you should do that for obvious reasons, but besides that, I don't know also if I can say this is a great buy low, but I think it's a buy low now. So let me explain that. Now, to clarify, if you buy on Corbin Carroll, it's not because I think you're going to get what you got last year from him from this point forward. I don't know that we're going to get any power really at this point, to be honest. He's only got 2 home runs. But look, I think this is because we really shouldn't have expected it from him. Despite the fact he had 25 home runs last year, this is not a power hitter. Last year's power output was really surprising, and so we just assumed he could do it again. Look, shoulder or not shoulder, I don't know what the reason is that the power is completely gone this year, but I think that double digits is pretty much what you should hope for, because let's remember, this guy is all of 165 pounds. He's a speedster. He could pull the ball and get you some home runs, but look, let's just throw 20 home runs out the window. But you're still getting the speed and, this point forward, hopefully, the batting average. Last year, 285. Obviously, this year, a much different story. He's down to 211. He's basically just got himself over the 200 mark a couple of weeks ago. He's doing better in June, hitting 254. Now, 254, again, not what you're hoping for the guy that you spend either a first or second round pick on, but still, it's better. It's showing signs that he is improving as the season has worn on. And the other thing is the speed, of course. Now, he's got you some steals. He was actually hot early in the stolen base department, but lately slowed down a lot. But now, picking it back up, 11 steals. Yeah, he's not on pace for 50. He's not getting you 50 this year. But when it's all said and done, he could still finish among the top 20 in stolen bases. But the reason I think we still have to be interested in Carroll is the runs, right? He's still scoring runs because even though he has recently been moved down in the order, not hitting leadoff every day anymore, I think that'll come back. But also, he's scoring the last 2 weeks, 11 runs scored. And even though the power and the speed aren't always there, I think the runs will always be there. He's got 44 in the season. He is on pace to score over 100 times, and he'll probably be among the league leaders in that category, especially if he actually keeps getting hits. Now, I haven't seen some dramatic turnaround, something that's making me say, this is it. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing last year's Carroll. It's not that. It's just he's shaken off his mostly miserable early part of the season. He's gotten to the point where he is serviceable. But again, you're still getting values from the runs and the steals. And I think that this is the time to buy, because even though some other people might have noticed that he's been better lately, it's not like he's doing great. It's not like you're seeing a bunch of highlights of Corbin Carroll every day. The power is still non-existent. And even though he was picking things up in June, over the last 5 days, he hasn't even gotten a hit because he went hitless for 4 straight. They had a day off, and so now people are going to start to worry again. So if there is a perfect time to buy, because, again, I had to see something from him, right? I don't want to keep looking at a guy that's giving me overs every day in my lineup. He's finally shown us something, but the buy low window is clearly still wide open. All right, now a guy you're really not going to want to trade for, and you're probably going to question me after I say this might be the time to grab Edwin Diaz. I am aware that Edwin Diaz has been suspended for 10 games, so he'll be out of commission for at least another week. But hey, he's going to come back, right? 10 games in the grand scheme of things is not a lot, especially for a pitcher. It's not a guy who's out there every day anyways, right? This is a reliever. I don't think it's going to really affect his bottom line too much. This is basically the last straw for a lot of Diaz owners, right? As if the whole thing with losing his confidence, losing the closer job wasn't enough. Then that minor injury, right? Shrugged that off, came back, got the job back, everything looked good. And now I think this just might be time where people get fed up, just say, I'm tired of this guy, it's a headache. That's where you, as a non-Diaz owner who might need saves, would take advantage. Because again, you look at this time, they're going to be without their closer for at least a week, and then they're going to want to move on from him if they are right now. Look, Diaz also, I know, hasn't been great this year, especially by his standards. Thought he would be one of the best closers in the game. The ERA is inflated, but let's look deeper. The expected ERA is actually pretty good. It's 2.80. The strikeout rate, 35%. Still really good. All his X-stats are actually really good. He's pitched well for the most part, other than that little couple of blips. But I think if you're in the market for a closer, you've got to trust that rest of the year, we're still going to see what we have mostly seen this year from Diaz. And this is a time you can get him probably at the cheapest. Look, if you don't have Kevin Gausman, you're probably thankful because you know he's having his worst season in a while. Got off to a late start because of a shoulder injury, missed a lot of spring training, hasn't really fully recovered. And if you look at this last month, as far as his June performances, he's had 4 starts. 3 of them were really pretty bad. One of them came against Oakland. That game against the A's, complete game shutout. And that's sandwiched in between, like I said, some bad starts. And in fact, his last 2 starts, given up 8 runs, only 7 earned. But still, he hasn't even finished 6 innings each of the last 2. So it almost seems like that one game was an outlier and that the bad is outweighing the good as far as his seasons goes. And that's fair to say. I mean, it's not like this guy's had just a couple of rough starts. It's like he's taken turns alternating, and the bad at this point is definitely overshadowing the good, especially being in Toronto. Now, part of the problem is the long ball. He's given up 6 home runs in those last 4 starts. This is something that Gausman has always dealt with. He will at times give up home runs, get hit hard, barrel rate, hard hit rate, not outstanding. But he can get by because otherwise he's really good, and the strikeout rate is always really good until this year. And that's really the biggest concern. He's getting less strikeouts, and that's, of course, affecting the bottom line here. His K rate is down to 23%, which is still just about major league average, but not what you expected from a supposed ace. And it's down on all of his pitch types. This isn't just one thing that you can just easily fix. So that is a reason for concern, I'm not going to lie. And digging a little deeper, guys are just swinging and missing less. The whiff rate is down by 5 points this year. So why buy into Gausman now with all that said? Well, I think mostly that same picture we've seen for the past few years is there. I do think that the strikeout rate is going to be probably somewhere in between last year's and this year's version. It could improve, but I'm not going to expect it to necessarily just go jump back up to last year. But we can buy low right now. You get a guy who's still going to be above league average in K rate, and mention that he's in Toronto. Well, maybe he gets a little boost from the fact that Toronto is almost surely going to be a seller this year. I'm kind of tired of talking about the Toronto Blue Jays on these buy low and all these panic videos because everything about them has been disappointing for the most part. Maybe he gets reunited with the Atlanta Braves, right? A team who could definitely use a starting pitcher anywhere else. Orioles, another former team of Gausman's. Look, these would be a boost, not a shot in the arm, not just for those teams and their rotations, which need some depth, but also for Gausman himself. I'll kind of excuse the first part of his season because of the injury, that late start. At this point, we can't use that as an excuse anymore, right? It's the end of June. He's got to be fully healthy. He wouldn't still be out there. So I don't think it's that, but Gausman is still a quality pitcher. He still has shown flashes like that A start that he can be dominant at times. So I'm going to bet on the better version of Gausman and buy low if I need somebody like him. And there's another starting pitcher I still think is being undervalued, and not because he's had a disappointing season, really. He hasn't been bad, but I think Michael King is still just a little underrated in fantasy. Look, if you watch our live streams, you know that Chris, who has been a Michael King owner in our fantasy endgame league, refers to him as that box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, right? Any given day, it really doesn't matter the opponent, right? It's not like he's good against the bad teams and bad against the good teams. He doesn't roll that way. It's just whichever way the wind blows, good Michael King, bad Michael King, take your chance. But while that could be super aggravating, especially in daily leagues, in the end, it kind of evens out. If you look at the season-long totals, he's been pretty solid. Got an ERA under 4, 3.75. He's got a 1.29 whip. Not amazing, but not that bad really. And the strikeouts, he's definitely helping you there. He's got 109 strikeouts on the season in just 93 innings. Even in his most recent start, where he gave up 5 earned runs in 6 innings, which you don't like to see, but he still got you 8 Ks. And that's why I think now is a good time to possibly fish for King. Coming off a rough start, I always like to try to get, who I feel are dependable starters right after they come off of a really bad start, because that's when people get frustrated, because this isn't the first bad start King has had. He's actually been really good in June until his last outing. And then if you want to get a bargain, basement, cheap kind of discount for an offensive threat, let's look to Baltimore. That's right, Baltimore. I think this might be a good time to try to get Colton Cowser. Now, this would have been better about a day or two ago, because with the news of Heston Kjerstad coming up immediately, anyone who has Cowser is panicking. Look, Cowser's not even universally owned. He's probably available to pick up in some leagues, not very competitive leagues though. But this is somebody who now has his playing time threatened by Kjerstad, because Kjerstad, right after getting called up, got the start and Cowser was on the bench. So naturally, the worry is these guys are going to split time. It's going to be really frustrating. And Cowser, though he was solid to start out, hasn't been great lately for fantasy. But I say don't overreact, because you know what? Kjerstad did get a start, and then the next day, what do we see now? Cowser getting to start in center field, which is interesting, and hitting a home run. Look, he still has that power, and in fact, this is a guy who should be doing better. His expected stats are really good. He's hit the ball well, just hasn't always had great outcomes. That batting average is okay, but he's getting you, 10 home runs now, getting you a few steals in that Baltimore offense. Things I feel will shake out for the best at some point for him, because he's been there since the jump. They like this guy, and of course they should. He's a great offensive talent. And I think he still has plenty of value in fantasy. Like, I don't know if any of these guys, as far as all these prospects, especially these guys in the outfield, if someone's going to get traded or not. Who knows? Maybe they'll move on from one of the veterans, a guy like Mullins or something. I don't know. But at some point, I feel like Cowser still winds up getting playing time majority of the rest of the second half of this season, and I think he still provides value. So somebody who could look at as like your third or fourth outfielder, utility guy, you can get probably at the cheapest right now. Speaking of rookies and prospects, I did break down Heston Kjerstad, why I'm going to give him a chance the second time around as well, and some other prospects that you should be stashing now while you can.